Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I have an amazing guest, Genevieve Kim. Where are you right now in the world? Are you in the US? Are you outside of the country? Where are you?
I'm actually in Tulum, Mexico. I left the hustle and bustle of New York City and I'm down here now.
Nice, nice. How is it out there? I'm pretty sure the weather is nice.
Oh, it's just turning into fall right now and it's really good. The summer heat's gone down and now I'm just doing my morning walks on the beach. I mean, it's the life. When are we gonna have you and Ruth down?
Well, we'll come down when the baby is born. Right now we're kind of like at that point where Ruth can't really travel much. Once we have the baby, we'll be able to have a little bit more flexibility there. But it's exciting to hear that you're enjoying the sun and you're away from this corporate, concrete jungle. And yeah, I really wanted to have you on an episode mainly because I fell in love with your story, and I think you have a very amazing story that I think a lot of people will get to glean from. Because what I took from it is that you were going through this, down this road, and you quickly figured that although people around you were telling you like this is the way, you knew it wasn't your calling, it wasn't the way that you wanted to take your life, and you quit all of that and you followed life on your own terms, which I think is quite inspiring, because a lot of people they just accept it and they then just live this miserable life knowing deep down that they're not happy. So in your particular case, you're in corporate America working for Deloitte, I believe.
Yep.
And just share a little bit about that story, and how you came to that point where you decided enough is enough, I'm gonna create my own path.
Yeah, well, it really goes back to something else. Prior to actually going into corporate America, I was a trained opera singer. So I studied that in university. And then, I tried my hand at that for a few years and I really bombed one of the auditions. I was at San Diego Opera and I walked out of there and I was just like, oh my gosh, I really suck. Like, even though I had a call back, right? And I was just feeling like I don't think I can keep doing this rejection after rejection. And so I went on a different path to, finally as I listened to everybody who was like, get a real job. And so I decided to get a real job and went into business and I ended up getting my MBA in finance. And then I ended up at Deloitte, which is pretty, corporate. And I learned a ton there. And I think what I learned there was that that was not the way that I was wanted to work. I learned a ton of valuable skills, but the biggest thing that I discovered was I really am a creative at heart. And I wasn't able to express that. And that frustration came up very much through a long series of uh, depression. I was at one point suicidally depressed. And I think that that's oftentimes, when we think about different types of mental or spiritual kind of challenges, is oftentimes it's perhaps something to do with, maybe our life's purpose. I'm not saying that's it for everybody, but sometimes it's highly correlated. And so for me, just having given up on singing and all the creative side of me, I knew that there was something inside of me deep down that was causing this depression, and it was regret. And I could either continue to live with this regret and, end it all. I was very, very much thinking about, what, like, if I should keep living. Or, there was a part of me that was like, I know there is one thing that I would get up out of bed for, and it was photography at the time. So
Yep.
I just photographed. I mean, I became obsessed with it, even though, there were a lot of other things falling apart in my life. And so I took a leap and I put in my 2 weeks notice. Mind you, little backup. I actually had an anxiety attack, and I was hospitalized. And I just discovered that there's no way I'm going to get better in this hustle environment. And so I took that leap. 2 weeks later, put in my 2-week notice, and I just really haven't looked back. And so I've been on a very much of a creative entrepreneurial experience, which I'm sure we'll talk more about. But I think for me, it was, I don't want to regret. I don't really want to like live like this anymore. So that's how I ended up moving forward. Really, there was to me no other alternative.
Wow, that's quite interesting. We'll touch on to the photography in a little bit because when you and I connected, one of the things that I found fascinating was the places photography took you. I think you went to like Mongolia, you went to Brazil, all these amazing places. So we're going to go into that a little bit. But I want to touch on one thing right now because a lot of my listeners are people who are, in corporate America, and they are probably going through that, same sentiment where they're stuck in a rut. They're stuck in a job because it's paying the bills, and it's kind of like the path that maybe their parents told them or society in general told them, but they're either an entrepreneur at heart, a creative, or whatever. And there's a school of thought where you could do what you did, which is just, say, I'm done, put in my notice, I'll figure it out. But there's another school of thought where you could start a side hustle, right? And while you're working the 9 to 5, you then have a 5 to 9. Do you have any thoughts, any tips or tricks about people who are, thinking about coming up with a side hustle and then slowly transitioning that side hustle into becoming their main hustle?
Yeah, I think actually, if I were to do it again, I mean, I'd say I wouldn't do it any differently. But I think one of the baby steps for me, I had enough is enough. But I think one of the baby steps is actually in that side hustle is actually exploring a passion or a hobby, and really just exploring it. And initially, maybe it doesn't have to be 5 to 9, but maybe it can be 5 to 6, and doing it consistently and regularly and seeing what that feels like over the course of, say, evaluating it over 90 days. By the way, this is like my second 90-day planner. This is my era. And I wholeheartedly believe in 90 days. So like just evaluating that. Um, and and in that evaluation then see, okay, so what do I want to do next? And I think this is very much the iterative process, even in startups. And then what do I need to do to take it to the next level? Is this something that I want to monetize or not? But I think the first action is actually setting aside dedicated time to
Mhm.
exploring what is it that I want to do. So for me, I've been photographing since I was probably 7. But even though I was at a more like it was like a 9 to 9, I still made time. I brought my camera with me even on when I was on client visits or sites. Like I didn't take pictures of that, but I used every opportunity I could to also continue photographing and exploring. And so I don't think it needs to be like, we go full out, full steam ahead initially. I think it's just about consistently showing up to what our passions and our side hustles can then turn into um, full-time experiences.
Nice. And let's go back to the photography. So now tell me some of the amazing projects that you've worked on, places that you've been to, and how that actually became a real moneymaker for you with some of these amazing projects you're working on.
Yeah, actually, so it's really interesting because I gave myself sort of a gap year. And I know that's not going to be traditional. Not everybody has that flexibility, especially if we have families or, we have student loans to pay off, which I did. But I used a gap year to really expand that 9 to 5 or like that 5 to 6 o'clock to just pretty much like, okay, what if I fully immersed myself for the whole year? And so I decided that, I was going to go abroad to places where I knew my perspective would be pushed. So I went to Turkey and I went to Lebanon. I was in Brazil and to, let's see, actually I traveled a lot in the States as well. That broadened my horizons and did a lot of road trips. And what I discovered during that time, and which is why I think gap years are phenomenal, is that when I was in Lebanon, I actually found, somehow I ended up doing a project for UN Habitats. And it was
Mm-hmm.
because of a friend who worked there. And I was I did a series of documentation of various vulnerable neighborhoods, from, refugee camps to just, yeah, vulnerable neighborhoods, I would say. So one of them happened to be a Palestinian refugee camp. And we were told not to go inside, and I was told just take the photos outside. I'm like, what? And so something in me, right, my curiosity led me, and I said, no, actually, we need to go inside. I need to go inside. So I went in alone, and I ended up meeting this woman in a community. And from there, she showed me around, and she's like, I need help. Like, I need help for, you need to bring in, the aid workers, because there's no water for us. And then her little daughter, came out, and she's like, take a photo of me. And I paused, and I was like, take a photo of you. Okay. All right. And so I photographed her, and the mother and we just stood there looking at each other. And I discovered what the power of photography was, is that she was basically saying, now you see us, we exist, we exist. And that in itself gave me a seed. It planted a seed of an idea to really turn my next, exploration, because it's still a gap year, into, what if I did portraits of people? What if I made portraits of people that were really about seeing and connecting, rather than it being, oh, let me shoot you, or let me take a photo of you, or capture you, right? It was just more like, let me make a portrait. Let me sit down with you. And as I started to do this, I had, very organically, I was not pitching at all, I had one brand come to me, and they said, we love these. Will you do this for us? And they commissioned me to do 250 portraits. And I was like, okay, sure. And that was my first, but mind you, prior to that, I had probably done maybe 2 weddings, maybe, a few, like, sessions here and there. But that first, no joke, no, that was my first commission. And I will say it was for $26,000. Never sold a print before, none of that. And it was all from this little seed of an idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a small idea to, like, follow my curiosity. And then another brand came to me and said, we got to do this for all of our agents. Our agents are global. And so that led me to the Philippines. I went to Kenya. I visited other places where they wanted me to photograph their employees. And what I discovered in that was that if I just followed my desire, right, and my natural desire to learn about people, and photograph them in this way of really seeing them, that something would naturally draw. And so I kind of started to use that same sort of mentality of following my curiosity, and then seeing and continuing to share, as a way to attract, right, to magnetize. And so if any of you are, in that hustle phase, is think about the things that are inspiring you first and foremost. Like, what's just, the things that are making you curious, and see what happens from there. From that project, it ended up being that I had someone who found me on Instagram and was like, we want to do this for a project down in Brazil. Will you come? And I was like, okay. I mean, I've never done it, right? And I've never done this type of project before. And it ended up being my first 6-figure project ever. And that's when I discovered, like, just how impactful one single seed of an idea can be. And lots of pivoting had to happen. And for me, that was kind of like something I was very used to. and ramping up on a new project was just something I was accustomed to. So for me, even though I couldn't photograph people, I knew that through the series of portraits and profile pieces I had done, is that I knew how to tell people's stories very, very well. And also with my marketing background, I focused on digital marketing strategy when I was at Deloitte. I knew that there was a huge need for people who were getting furloughed, who were having, like career crises now with the pandemic. And I said, what do I have? What do I know that I have? And what else do I know that I love to do as well? Not only a skill, a talent, but also something that I'm passionate about. And then what does the world need, right? Kind of the Ikigai principle, which you probably know. And so that then became where I was like, badass bio. Everybody needs a badass bio. And with that came a completely new experience, which was that I could give workshops on people of how to tell their stories. And so I continue to do that in now, not just in the Badass Bio workshop, but through whether it's helping people brands and think about how they position themselves. And I do this with creatives, and I still have more traditional clients, whether it's family offices or private equity funds. But it's just it's everybody needs it, and it all came out from this one idea of like, let me go inside there and let me photograph.
Wow. So in life, sometimes what I find fascinating is that one moment can literally just change the trajectory of your life, right? Imagine if you didn't take action, got cold feet, and didn't go inside the refugee camp, right? A lot of the things that you're talking about would not have manifested. But because you're willing to take a risk, you're willing to take the action that maybe others weren't willing to do, and you're just open to say like, hey, I'm going to go find out. And yes, they told us not to get in. I'm not saying to people don't do the things that you're not told to do, but sometimes in life you have to take that risk because that's where the reward is. So I've done the badass bio exercise. It's really amazing. You spend an hour with Genevieve, and she asks you a series of questions. And at the end of it, you have this amazing bio where you really talk about, yourself, the things that you've accomplished, and how you really want to position yourself in the marketplace. And I think it's key, regardless of your career, what you're trying to do, if you're a coach, an entrepreneur, whatever, right? Because you need to present yourself with the best foot forward if you're going to make things happen. Because like, let's say, even if you just want to get people to come on a podcast, like, they want to know who you are. Like, people want to bet on, winning horses, right? So having a badass bio gives you that, ammunition where people be like, you know what, I'm going to take a risk on this guy or girl and help them out with whatever they're doing, be it suppliers, vendors, or whatever. So it's something for you to really think about. And perhaps as a gift, Genevieve, maybe we can drop a link for people if they want to sign up and learn a little bit more. So we'll put it down in the description below. So feel free to connect with her regarding that. So
made it
anyway,
so easy, by the way, Kuda, to do your badass bio, because
it was.
I mean, I fell in love with your story the moment we connected. I think was LinkedIn, and I was like, oh,
Yep.
amazing bio.
Yeah, and that's one thing too, is like sometimes people are just afraid to say hello, right? Because that's how we connected on LinkedIn. Is I just said hi, let's throw time on the calendar to just get to know each other. And then through that, 15-30 minute conversation, a lot of amazing things came out of that conversation, which then led to so many different things. So sometimes people are just afraid to say hello. And in life, I'm a firm believer that if you're in a certain place and that person is in that certain place at that certain time, perhaps there's a reason for that. So for me, seeing your profile at that certain time, it's kind of like spoke to me like, why did I click on this person? And looking at a profile, let's just see what happens. And we've been able to do some amazing stuff together. So do not hesitate to take action, guys. Just follow your gut, and sometimes amazing things will manifest. What I'm really excited about for you, Genevieve, right now is you also did something that took a lot out of you, which is you decided to take that bold step to become an author. A lot of people always say, like, oh, I want to write a book one day. I want to write a book someday. You decided that that day was, today, whenever the day you decided to start writing, and you just followed through. You had the process, and I think the book is out now, or it's coming out really soon.
It's in manuscript right now, and it's in editing process, and I'm going to hold myself accountable. It should be out before the end of this year. It did take quite a bit of action, and I'll say I started in October of last year, so it was about a 10-month journey. When I finished it, the manuscript, the first draft, it was August. And I would say that the massive action part, that language that you're using, is I started to track daily, like when I was writing, because there was like a lot of inconsistency when I first started. And I initially I was so gung-ho, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take that massive action. I'd done Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within, and I was like, I scheduled 10 to 12 every day on my Google Calendar. And then 10 to 12 would come around, and I was like, I have gotten nothing written. But so what I noticed, once I decided to just track, all right, I said, okay, just track, when I'm writing and how many pages I'm writing, or how many words I'm writing. And I started to notice that I was actually writing more in the afternoon, just naturally. And I was actually getting things done. And that part about massive action, which is kind of funny, is sometimes the massive actually just means take one step. So I would tell myself, oh, I just, today I'm just going to do 200 words. And so I made my word count initially 200 words per day. And that ended up becoming, naturally, I was doing 1,000 per day.
Wow.
And my manuscript ended up being 91,000 words. And just for reference, The Hobbit is 86,000 words. So it's kind of long. And I know a lot of it's going to get chopped. And who knows, people probably don't want to read, that much about my story. But what I would say is just like setting those little, like, tracking, and then also even just setting a little small, goal every single day really, really helps keep the momentum, right? Because like that's basically what helps us go, is keeping that momentum in motion.
That's interesting. Well, congratulations on the book, and I can't wait to read it. Hopefully, it won't be the full 91,000 words, but I think it's going to be fascinating, and I'm going to learn a lot from it. Now, I just want to touch on goal setting. You were showing this is my Arrow 90-day planner earlier, and I'm just curious around your goal setting process, as well as some of the daily rituals that you do to just make sure that you stay on top of things. Because one of the things when you're now an entrepreneur and working for yourself, you have to create the structure, right? When you're working at Deloitte, when they give you an offer, they'll tell you the structure. Oh, work starts at this time and ends at this time. Like they give you all those parameters. But now when you are kind of like working by yourself, you now have to figure a lot of these things out. So I'm just curious around your goal setting and planning process, as well as some of the daily rituals that you do every single day to just make sure that you're crushing it.
Yeah. So for me, I maybe about 2 years ago, where I really, really recognized how powerful 90-day sprints were. Instead of thinking about, oh, what's your 5-year plan? And it's nice to visualize and think about it, but then it also, that vision can sometimes be immobilizing, right? Because like it's so big and hairy. So I started to do quarterly plans, and then break down quarterly plans with respect to specific categories of my life that are really important to me. But since, we're talking about entrepreneurship, I think about, what were specifically within business, what three primary categories were, included. What did I want to do financially? Like what kind of successes did I want financially? And then what kind of successes did I want developmentally? And I don't mean by like learning development, because that's another bucket, but development, like what did I want to create? I think about this in product terms, like what product development was I going to create? And then the last one is like, what do I want to learn? Essentially, like what, at the end of the day, what am I going to be happy that I learned? And so in those areas in my business, I think about it from that perspective. And then in each of those categories, what were going to be my 90-day goals. And I'd work back from there, like monthly on average, like what were my KPIs that I needed to achieve each month, roughly. And the biggest part of this is actually, which goes into the daily aspect, is reviewing those every single day. And one of the ways, for me is ritualizing that. So I have a morning routine, which is, thank God to this, right? I do, I'm so grateful that I have, I'll put in gratitude, and think about my priorities. And then I'm reviewing, like, what were my wins and my accomplishments at the end of the night. And, but including, writing these things down, right? Setting up my mindset for that is I dance or I go and run. So I'm getting movement in my body. I'm saying, I'm repeating affirmations, or I recently became obsessed with EFT tapping. To me, it's like steroids, affirmations, NLP on steroids, and journaling. I mean, there's nothing more powerful than journaling. So those are like the primary things that I do in the morning to just make sure that I'm focused. And the other little thing that I just wanted to add in terms of goal setting is I make it a point to have time to think. And we think, oh, do, and is what productivity means. But that time and space to integrate, to process, to evaluate, that's all thinking. And we need that. So I also make sure that I do that, which is why Wednesdays for me, I don't do calls on Wednesdays. Sure, I'm checking email and I am communicating in other ways, but it's just one way where I can say, this is the day where, I'm on a different pace. So I highly recommend, write things down, get one of these. This is my era. Like I'm going to continue, keep on buying. I think I should just subscribe, actually, Kuda, on Amazon.
We do have a subscription. Yeah, you can get one of those subscriptions, and you get one every 3 months. So that'll make it much easier for you. So obviously, thank you for the support with the planners. We do use a portion of each sales to help improve the quality of education for children in Africa through our partnership with World Vision. So as you're planning your goals and dreams, you give also others in need the ability to plan their goals and dreams as well. So thank you so much. So as we wrap things up, Genevieve, can you share maybe one message you'd want the listeners to take away from this interview, as well as just share also how people can find you if they want to connect with you after this?
There's a mantra that I say every single morning, and it's part of my routine, which is, today I will make magic happen for others. And that's really the magic. And so actually, I'm going to leave with another thing, is the other mantra that I consistently say, and it's simple, but also it does involve action, which is show up and share. Just keep showing up and sharing. That's when we get the breadcrumbs of what's the next step, what's the next step, what's the next step. And maybe a breadcrumb is, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where Kuda and I met. And also I'm on Instagram, and also Kuda, you inspired me to re-up my YouTube game. So I just recorded a ton of videos this week, and I'm getting back in the groove of that. So find me there, and I would definitely love to invite you. I do the Badass Bio workshop for free regularly. So hit me up. I will send you information on that, and also we'll have a link in the description below.
Yeah, so we'll put all of the links in the descriptions below. Thank you so much, Genevieve, and enjoy Mexico. How's your Spanish, by the way? Are you like fluent, or where you at with your Spanish?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Me llamo Genevieve.
Ah, good. That was a sniff test. Good job. Anyway, enjoy Mexico, and can't wait to connect with you. Can't wait to put my hands on your book. And thank you so much for coming here and joining. You're going to achieve so many amazing things in life, and I just can't wait to see what you're going to achieve over time. So have a good day.
Muchas gracias, Kuda.
Muchas gracias.